Around the beginning of August, you sort of hinted at this earlier. You and Tully started an angle with the Midnight Express and their manager, Jim Cornette. And this is pretty unique at the time because in this era, we didn't often see good guy versus good guy or bad guy versus bad guy in any promotion, really. And at this time, of course, both your teams are heels, and the Midnight Express are also the U.S. tag team champs, and you guys are the world tag champs. This is unusual. What led to, two heel tag teams, both with gold, being in a bit of a feud with each other?
Well, I'm not sure whose idea it was, but at this point in time, I'm sure the brain trust was scrambling for what's new, what hasn't been done, what can we put out there that would be new and fresh. And I think Bobby and my relationship was a big selling point of that feud because we literally did live one street apart. We were best friends. And I think Jim Cornette had such a talent for building feuds and building issues and just being an overall smartass. He just really was good. And you take J.J. Dillon, who was on the flip side of that coin, and he was indignant and he was elitist and he had the Horsemen to have bragging rights over and all those things that just came together as the perfect storm. And in those days, you're right, you didn't have two heel teams battling it out because, if they truly looked at it, they would just go, well, I hate all four of those guys. Let them kill each other. Who gives a shit? Notoriously, you have to have a good guy and a bad guy. Good versus evil has been the crux of our business. I think it should be more so today. We've gotten into that gray area. Well, gray, okay. I either like black or I like white. Gray to me is just what it is. Gray, dull. I don't understand. There's nothing special about being gray. But I think in this scenario with Bobby and my relationship and Cornette being able to banter back and forth with JJ and Tully and I being able to do what we do on the microphone, it just built into something that, hey, this is going to, they're all champions. One of the U.S. tag champions, one of the world tag team champions. This has got some legs, and boy, did it.
Jim Cornette said that he and Tully would go back and forth about who was going to be the heels. And Jim said that Dusty decided to paint the Midnights and Jim in the babyface role with how he orchestrated the angle. And Jim said that Dusty felt he needed to keep you and Tully as the top heels for his promotion. And he said during the 6 to 8 weeks where you guys were doing this angle, you all made tremendous money during it. He said the matches drew and the gates were incredible. And he said his one regret in his NWA run is that he didn't have 6 months with you guys as opposed to 6 weeks. And he said in that short time, it was already drawing more money than their feud with the Rock and Roll Express, which was the new record at the time. Everybody talked about how legendary those matches were, but how incredible the gates were with the Midnights on one side and Rock and Roll on the other. But Jim believes had you guys had more time here, that Arn and Tully versus the Midnights would have been even bigger. What say you?
I agree with Jim Cornette 100%. Which again, as we're talking, Conrad, I'm reliving stuff that I skipped and in my business head should have covered and should have thought about and maybe should have stood up a little more about, how I felt. But at the time, again, in Charlotte, for example, they had just opened the new Hornets Arena. And it was Ric Flair against Lex Luger. And then it was the Midnight and against Tully and Arn. And I want to say in that inaugural event in that building, we did 15,000 people with a double main event. That angle was on fire. And it was just another example of, I wish I would have stepped outside of myself and went, okay, let me look at Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard and the Midnight Express from a different perspective. Let me be on the outside looking in instead of being involved in it, because it would have been another example of no matter who you put us with, it wouldn't have mattered. It could have been a couple of guys that were up there selling popcorn. It would have had interest with everybody in that audience. They would have went, well, hell, let's see what they're going to do with the popcorn guys. Wouldn't have mattered, because we knew how to get a match over, to get our opponents over and get ourselves over. And it was the biggest money that I had made, with the exception of a couple of other times. But by and large, week in and week out, and actually, after we left, Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton were brought in to take our position when Tully and I left. Now, of course, Jim Crockett did not advertise that it wasn't going to be Tully and myself. They just left the advertising that was already out there 6 weeks out or whatever it was, left it the way it was. And those guys personally came up to me the next time I saw them and said, I just want to thank you. We had 6 weeks of the most money we've ever made in the business. We'd like to thank y'all for that. So, we were a proven commodity. It didn't matter. And, it was one of those things that at that point in time, that did help sway us as far as if we're in the middle of another hot angle that is carrying the company, and it was at that particular time, and they had seen just about every combination, they being our audience, that we had to offer. This was something new and fresh and kicking ass. If the guy that I've put my family and myself's trust in, the owner of the company, doesn't see what my value is here, and he's going to go ahead and mistreat us in other situations, television-wise and opponent-wise, then what the hell am I doing? It really was a tipping point for me.